Thank you very much, Leslie, for that very generous introduction. Thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for your warm reception and, more importantly, for your support for a truly great organization working in a noble cause, and also tonight to honor a truly great person in Janet Wallach, who was one of those who, with John, began Seeds of Peace 20 years ago. I thank Leslie for her overly kind introduction. I speak often, and I get introduced a lot. It's always heartwarming, but there is a real risk to it, and that is if you hear that stuff said often enough, you begin to believe it. And you can get a distorted view of the world, so I always like to begin after such a nice introduction with a story that brings me back to earth. I spent 5 years in Northern Ireland, and when I completed my work there, I wrote a book about my experience, and I came back to the U.S. and went on a book promotion tour. I received many invitations, and I could only accept a few, and I learned something very interesting when I get all these invitations, especially from Irish groups, that in the United States there are more Irish American organizations than there are Irish Americans. And they all invited me to come. I went to many, but couldn't take them all. And as I traveled around the country, going from one Irish society to another, there developed an informal competition among my introducers as to who could give the longest, often most fantastic, frequently ridiculous introductions about events in my life of which I had previously been unaware. Instead of reacting properly with skepticism and urging them to tone it down, I reacted very badly by encouraging them. One guy took 35 minutes to introduce me, read off everything I'd ever done in my life, and when he finished, I told him, "You forgot the fact that I got the Science Award when I graduated from Waterville High School in Maine many years ago." He said, "You remember that the next time." By the time I got to the last stop, which was the Irish American Club of Stamford, Connecticut, my head was swollen. I was feeling very self-important. When I walked in the front door, the very first person I encountered was an elderly woman who rushed up to me, grabbed my hand, shook it vigorously, almost knocked me over, said, "I'm so thrilled to meet you." She said, "I don't live anywhere near here. I drove 3.5 hours just to come here to shake your hand, to tell you what a great man I think you are. You've done so much all around the world, and to ask you, please, would you sign my poster?" She handed me what was the equivalent of a political poster, a big picture on it. I looked at it and I said, "I'll be happy to sign your poster, but before I do, I think there's something I must tell you." She said, "What is it?" I said, "I'm not Henry Kissinger." The picture on the poster was of Henry Kissinger. She was shocked. She said, "You're not?" She said, "Well, who are you anyway?" And when I told her, she said, "Well, that's just terrible." She said, "I drove 3.5 hours to shake the hand of a great man, Henry Kissinger, and all I've got is a nobody like you." I said, "Well, I'm sorry you feel so bad. I wish there's something I can do to make you feel better." She said, "Well, there is." I said, "What is it?" She leaned forward, our foreheads were touching, and she said in a conspiratorial whisper, "Nobody will ever know the difference." She said, "Would you mind signing Henry Kissinger's name to my poster?" So I did. And somewhere today in eastern Connecticut, it's hanging on the wall. Now here's the best part of the story. About 6 months ago, Henry and I appeared together at an event here in Manhattan, a business conference, and on the stage with 3 chairs, he and I and a moderator who asked us a lot of questions about different parts of the world. I thought it'd be a good place to tell this story, which I did. Crowd got a kick out of it. Henry appeared to like it, and then we went on to talk about China and the Middle East and elsewhere. After the event, we found ourselves alone in the elevator going down to the ground floor. And Henry said to me, "I've heard you speak many times as Senate Majority Leader. I've been with you together on many events." He said, "Never have I heard you more persuasive and more brilliant in your presentation tonight." I said, "Really? Well, that's very nice." I said, "Was it my answer on China? Was it my discussion of the Middle East?" No, he said, "It was that introduction." He said, "That's one of the best stories I've ever heard. I think you should tell it all over America." So I've got a long list, and now I can check off 62nd and Park Avenue as I've told Henry's story again. Well, I'm very happy to join you this evening for two reasons. First, I, of course, as all of you do, believe deeply in the work of this great organization, Seeds of Peace. And also because I want very much to join all of you in honoring Janet Wallach. Janet, from its founding with John to this moment, you've served the Seeds of Peace organization and the many individual seeds as a board member, as president, and in virtually every capacity. And you've served with all your heart and soul, and in the process, you've become the heart and soul of this great organization. It's been an honor for me and for so many others here this evening to have worked with you. And I join everyone here in expressing our admiration and our gratitude for your vision, your energy, and your passion in what is a large, important, even noble cause. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in expressing our gratitude to Janet Wallach. As a native of Maine, I am especially pleased that this great organization does much of its work in the right place. Not only is the camp in Maine, but Seeds of Peace is now working with Maine youth, applying the Seeds of Peace model to new immigrant communities in my home state. We're here tonight celebrating 20 years of this organization. And yet, the situation in the Middle East today is more complicated than ever, and pessimism is widespread. Although Northern Ireland and the Middle East are very different, some things are the same. Just a week before the Good Friday Agreement was reached in Northern Ireland, a widely noted public opinion poll revealed that 83% of the people of Northern Ireland believed that no peace agreement was possible. Only 7% thought it was, 10% had no response. 4 days later, a peace agreement was reached, and I'm pleased to say that, although imperfect, the peace has held to this day, 15 years later. If it happened there, it can happen anywhere, and I believe it can and will happen in the Middle East. One reason it happened was that after many, many years of painful negotiation with little progress, at least in a small way, the men and women who conducted those negotiations, who had been fighting and killing each other for most of their lives, began to discover their common humanity. They began to see individuals sitting across the table, not stereotypes. And that's really, when you get down to it, what Seeds does. It emphasizes and builds on what people have in common rather than on that which divides them. At a critical point in Northern Ireland, I was able to get leaders from both sides together, away from the pressures of their daily struggles, away from the pressures of the media, in private, secluded negotiations. On the first evening when we sat down to dinner, I told them that there were only 2 rules. They had to mix up their seating at the dinner, not the usual practice of all one side on one end and all of the others on the other, leaving the whole middle of the table to me, and that there could be no discussion of issues during dinners. That, I said, would be reserved for the negotiations. Well, they answered, if we can't talk about the issues, there's nothing else for us to talk about. But I insisted, yes, there is a lot to talk about. You can talk about your day jobs, about your children, about your hobbies, about your last family vacation. That led to an interesting exchange. I was seated next to David Trimble, then the leader of the largest unionist party, and someone across the table yelled, "Hey, David, I hear you're a big opera fan. Is that true?" He said, "Yes." He said, "When did you last go to the opera?" And he told them, and he said, "What did you see?" And he told them, and then one of the others yelled to me, "Senator Mitchell, you ever go to the opera?" I said, "Yes, in fact, I do." I said, and as a matter of fact, I go the night before I come over here every time. I've been to Northern Ireland by then 100 times, and I said I have been to the opera every single time the night before I come over here to meet with you guys. They said, "Why is that?" I said, "Well, I want to get in the proper frame of mind to meet and talk with you." I said, "When I go to the opera, the one thing I know is that every single word, spoken or sung, will be exactly the same as it was the last time I saw the opera." I said, "I've seen La Boheme 12 times, and Rodolfo has not once ever uttered an impromptu word." And I said, "That puts me in the proper frame of mind to come see you guys, because I know I'm going to hear the same songs from you that I've been hearing all these years." Well, what I wanted, of course, was for them to begin to see each other as human, to think of themselves as individuals, men and women with much in common. It would be a stretch to say that they got to like and trust each other. They really didn't. But they did eventually come to listen to each other, to see each other as something other than an enemy, something other than a member of an alien tribe out to do us harm. And that's what the Seeds of Peace does. It brings out the humanity that exists within all of us, allowing and encouraging relationships that might otherwise have seemed impossible. I believe deeply, with all of my heart and soul, that somehow, someday, and hopefully soon, peace will prevail between Israelis and Palestinians, because it is so much in the interest of all the people of both societies and others around the world. I'm honored to be associated with an organization that has devoted itself for 20 years and whatever it takes to support that effort, to encourage that effort, and to make it possible that the day it happens, there'll be men and women who will have learned through Seeds of Peace what it is to work together for the common cause of peace. A great organization engaged in a great cause. Thank you for your support.